Hello and welcome to Who We Ood, an unofficial Doctor Who watch along podcast. I am one of your hosts this evening, morning, whenever you're listening to this. I'm here with my co-host Ben. How are you doing today, Ben?
You know, I'm doing all right. I just finished watching Section 31. Have you heard of this, Cam?
Is that the Star Trek movie?
It's the Star Trek Paramount Plus original streaming movie.
Was it good?
It was not at all.
Damn. Do you like Strange New Worlds, Ben?
Very much. Like, is it Alex Kurtzman?
Yeah.
It's a mixed bag, but there is some good stuff. It's very different from the originals, but overall, there is, quality stuff there. This is not one of those. This is very bad, very generic. It could be generic sci-fi action movie, kind of like Guardians of the Galaxy level quippiness, but it's not funny, and it is very weirdly edited and paced, and it feels like a 6-hour limited series that got shrunk to a 90-minute movie, and it's not good.
That's unfortunate. I just recently watched the Netflix Kanye West documentary. That was pretty good.
How old is that?
It came out like COVID, like 2021, I think.
Interesting.
So it's like right before he went full on, like this already was like when he was like gone crazy, but like he hasn't gone full crazy, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But Ben, you know what isn't bad?
Doctor Who?
No, well, so Doctor Who, it can be bad, but the Hinchcliffe era, it's not bad. And on today's episode, we're going to be ranking the Hinchcliffe era's episodes and doing just a retrospective on the Hinchcliffe era as a whole, just because of how influential it is as an era of the show. It's pretty much known as a golden age of the show. If you are listening to this on a podcast platform, please go over and watch the YouTube where you can see us ranking it in a what do you call these things, Ben?
A tier list?
Where where you can actually see us put things on the tier list. It's going to be a lot more enjoyable for you to actually see it instead of listening to us explain the rankings. Probably a bad us doing a bad job explaining the tier list to those listeners. Just go over on YouTube and watch it.
Highly recommended.
So Ben, where to start? Do we start like because like we could just go by the order of release, or we could have a little bit of fun with it.
Hmm.
Is there a way to randomize the bottom?
Not easily.
Damn, because you know what I'm saying. If we could just randomize it and be like, hey, we have this one. Where do we rank this one? All right. Let's just start right now. Let's just start with a random one. Let's just start. Where's Hand of Fear going, Ben?
Hand of Fear.
We both rated it an 8. So it's a solid story, but it's not a
Yes.
great story. It's probably gonna be in B, right?
Yeah, I
For
think.
now. It's a good one just to start off with, just being like, this is the basic story.
Yeah, it's a very solid Doctor Who adventure. Towards the end, it starts to kind of fall apart a little bit, but it is very good. And I could see it being, B, maybe even low A. We'll see how this kind of works out.
All right. Ben, w- I'm thinking let's continue with this B range and the same like let's flesh out the Bs for now.
Okay.
Robot is another B story, right?
Yes, the honorary Hinchcliffe episode, even though it's technically
Yeah, so like listeners, if you're getting mad at us for including Robot, it's a hard one because it's technically not in the Hinchcliffe era. He did like he was behind the scenes in it.
I mean, he was like on set, right?
Yeah, so it's like or at least in the production
He
office.
just wasn't the producer.
Yeah. So like we're gonna include this.
It'd be silly not to.
Yeah. For reference, I rated an 8.1 and you rated an 8. So the same as Hand of Fair, and I think
Yes.
it's just slightly above Hand of Fair.
If you're looking at the tier list, Cam's ratings is in blue, mine is in green. So Cam rated an 8.1 and I rated it an 8.
I personally will watch Robot over Hand of Fair most days just because of how much fun Tom is.
I would agree with that.
Even though I think maybe Hand of Fair has a little bit some more highs than Robot does.
I think, yeah, the Doctor's introductory episode, those like first one or two episodes are he's really electric, and just him and you know fooling around with Harry, getting to know Sarah. It's good.
But I do think part 2 and 3 of Hand of Fair is stronger than Robot.
Yeah. Towards the end of Robot, it gets kind of less interesting.
But not even that, it's like I think it's, like, towards, like, in the middle, where it's just, like, it kinda loses its steam in a bit and then picks up a little bit more at the end. So, yeah, it's a hard one because I think they're both pretty much on the same level, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So, it's like, I think I could any day of the week, I could say one is better than the other, but I think saying a Robot's higher for now is a good good point.
Yeah.
So, Ben, where do you wanna go next? I picked those 2.
On a similar vein, what about the Android invasion? Are you thinking, is that C or is that like a lowish B? Because there's definitely some good stuff in it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a hard one. It's a real hard one because like, Android Invasion does have some strong bits in it, but also it kinda where do what is wrong with Android Invasions? I'm trying to remember.
Is it crawl? The
Yeah.
crawl kind of suck.
Yeah.
The androids are cool though.
Yeah.
It's got some good like android towny stuff at like the bar.
Yeah, and, like, the first episode is incredible because of, like, all that mystery.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm still thinking it's still a B, but it's a low B, if
Yeah,
you will agree with it.
I would agree with that.
'Cause there's still a lot of good stuff in there. Like, the thing is that, like, I will put on Android Invasion more than I would say I would put on a C story.
Absolutely.
But what I would consider to be a C story is the Suntown Experiment. I would say that is a C story.
Yeah.
I don't think it's bad enough to be it's too short to be a D.
Yeah, if it was stretched out to 4 episodes, it would suck, but just as, like, a little nice 2-episode jaunt with the return of the Sontarans, it accomplishes what it needs to. We're in and out, hard to really be offended by.
Yeah, due to its runtime, it's unoffensive. So, yeah, I think C is good.
Not like Revenge of the Cybermen,
Yeah, that's a D.
that is offensive.
Yeah.
Ooh, I mean, I love the Cybermen in Troughton's era. Really great stories there. 10th Planet, of course, Invasion, Tomb, and these are not those Cybermen. They're just generic bad guys with deep booming voices and teaming up with humans. It's just everything that makes the Cybermen is not in this serial.
Yeah. But also just, like, they're just not scared they're not threatening of a force at all.
Yeah. And even if it wasn't an offensive depiction of Cybermen, the story outside of it isn't that good.
Oh, yeah. It's just boring.
What's the planet?
Vogon? Or Vogan?
Varga?
No, what?
I think it's Voga. That sounds
Voga.
right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The Vogans. Yeah, I think that's what it
I mean, it's cool to see Rassilons there, but that's about it.
is.
They're not really interesting.
I'm shocked I gave it a 6.6 in retrospect. I would have probably now now looking back on it, I'm like, I probably should have did like a 6.
Yeah. Do you think I'm also looking at the other things that really stand out. Do you prefer Revenge of the Cybermen to the Mask of Mandragora?
Yeah, I do. I prefer Mask of Mandragora. I know you don't. I mean, sorry, I prefer Revenge of the Cybermen over Mask of Mandragora just because at least the Cybermen are there, even though how shit they are. Mask of Mandragora, I just thought had not a lot of positives at all, except for like the first like 5 minutes. So
That first 5 minutes is really cool
it,
though.
it is, but the rest of the story is just
There isn't 5 minutes of Cybermen that is that cool.
yeah. No, there's the scene of being like Harry Sullivan's an imbecile. Part 1 of Revenge Assignment isn't that bad when it comes to, like, them on the with the people the people of on Nova. I think that stuff's not that bad. It just the story really plummets after that, I would say.
Yeah.
So I still think Revenge Assignment's better.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed Mask a little bit more. There's some interesting parts, but it's definitely kind of a slow plotting, mostly historical. I can live with it being below Revenge. Very easily live.
Okay, Ben. Let's just get it out of the way. The Big Daddy, Genesis of the Daleks. Just put it in the S tier already.
Yeah,
We kinda don't even need to say anything. It belongs there in that spot. It does that. It was made for that spot, you know.
yeah. I should have just gave it a 10.
Because it's like it's not gonna get better than that, Ben. I'm sorry, unless you're one of those people that's maybe you like prefer City of Death or you prefer Kaiser Androzani, but like it's pretty much perfect except for the clams. But even the clam, there's an aspect to the clams that makes it kind of perfect because it does have that little one fuck up.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It is amazing for sure. I hesitate to call it perfect. A 10 is a perfect. And even if it's just the clams, to drop it a point 0.1.
But see, that's where we disagree because I think a 10 is a 10 is I have that old IGN scale of 10 is a masterpiece, 10 is imperfect, 10 is a masterpiece, and just the Daleks is a masterpiece of classic Doctor Who. But to continue back to the C tiers, Ben.
So only a couple. Planet of
Yeah,
Evil?
let's go Planet of Evil. It's not as good as Sontan Experiment.
Yeah. There's some neat bits. When they're on the planet itself, that stuff is pretty cool. That is a
Yeah.
really good planet. And the creatures, once it's like just on the ship though, loses a lot of steam.
Yeah.
This guy, I can't think of his name, is not as cool of a villain as just the entity in the pit.
No. And it's just also like there's no where a story like that where to pull something like that off, it needs that suspense and that's that part of the story where he's just picking off the crew one by one. It need to be like a slasher film. And it doesn't feel like that at all. It just kind of is
No.
boring. Okay, I think that's a pretty good spot for it.
Yeah.
Now we have Face of Evil, another one in the C tiers, man. But where does that go?
I would put it above Santan Experiment.
See, I wouldn't.
I get it, Santaran Experiment, it's only 2 episodes, but setting the length aside as a reason for rewatching,
Yeah,
I think there's some good stuff there.
there is.
They're pretty close, but I'd rather watch, the introduction of Leela, who I have been enjoying so far. Zoannon is interesting, although it would be cooler if we had seen that previous adventure that is referenced.
Oh no, that was like one of the main things of like, oh, that could have made the story so much better. And like that would have been definitely a new Who's thing of having like it's do like the reveal of this is from a past adventure and then actually being able to see that past adventure and doing like now we're gonna go back in time. It's like that would have been cool, but we didn't get that.
Yeah.
All right, Ben, you're next. Where do we go?
Should we finish up the bees too? Last one, Terror of the Zygon. Where do we put that?
Again, we've been bad about it, but I gave it an 8 and Ben gave it a 7.9.
Hmm.
So it's pretty much in the same tier as a lot of those bees. We didn't love Terror of the Zygons as much as some people do.
Yeah,
I would say it's hard. It's a real hard one. I probably would. You just put it in between Robot and Hand of Fair, and I think that is a pretty good spot for it. I think, yeah. But I would also probably like the Robot, Terror of the Zygons, and Hand of Fair. I could change those any day of the week. You know.
yeah,
I feel like I could rewatch Tale of the Zygons tomorrow and be like, actually, no, this is a high B story instead of a mid B story.
yeah. They're all kind of around the same. I almost want to bump it right below Hand of Fear when
No,
I think
no,
about.
no, 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 no. Zygon, the Zygon designs alone, Ben, and the idea of the Zygons and like the evil Harry Zygon stuff is better than the Hand Affair.
But they're actually both departure story. I think Sarah's departure is way better than Harry's departure.
Yeah, but that doesn't count. We're not judging the last 5 minutes of the story here, Ben. We're judging it as a whole. In terms of the Zygons as a whole, Hand Affair has that last part that's pretty bad. Now the more I think about it, the more I'm thinking maybe even Terror of the Zygons it is above Robot because Terror of the Zygons doesn't have anything that's that bad in it. It's pretty consistent throughout. It's a consistent 8. It's not a story that I would say like Robot and Hand Affair where it can be a higher 8. I mean, it could be a higher 8 or it can be a lower in the 7s. It just the story it just fluctuates in the story. Terror of the Zygons throughout is pretty consistently just a good story.
That's true. Yeah, it doesn't have the highs of Robot, but it also doesn't have the lows of robots. Yeah, I could go for a high B if you wanted to do a high B. The highest B.
I'm thinking, man. I'm thinking, like I said, Terror of the Zygons is more consistent than Robot.
Yeah, let's do it. So B tier is Terror of the Zygons, Robot, the Hand of Fear, and the Android Invasion.
Well, you say that, but like, what is Brain of Morbius, Ben? Is Brain of Morbius our first A?
I think so. There's enough good stuff there.
In reference, I give it an 8.5 and Ben gave it an 8.2.
Yeah. It's crossing that threshold for me into the A tier.
Yeah, I would agree.
It's a great kind of gothic
Oh
horror
yeah.
in the vein of Frankenstein. We, of course, get some previous incarnations of the Doctor hinted at, which Cam has ranted about, that is locked away for a couple years for me. Yeah, really quite good.
Okay, Ben. Now we have a bunch of heavy hitters left. Where do we go?
Are these all S's or are there any A's here?
I think.
Because these are all like 8.9 or higher.
Well, you're the one person you're the person here that rated Deadly Assassin at 8.6. The Madman.
True. I mean, it was good. Master wasn't as good as I hoped he would be.
He's dying, Ben. He's decayed.
The Matrix was kind of started strong, but then ended good, but not as strong. It's a very good story. If you wanted to put an S, I would be fine with it. Maybe a low S.
Okay, Ben. Let's do low S for Deadly Assassin. But Robots of Death. Robots of Death, we both rated at 8.9. The question is now: is Robots of Death, is that the highest A or is that the lowest S?
I mean, I would rather watch Robots than Deadly Assassin.
But see, that's where I come in. That I really don't, and I like. It's hot. It's really hot, Ben. Because I really love Deadly Assassin more than you. Five
Hmm.
5 points higher than you, which I think might be our biggest diff. Oh no, I guess Mastermind Drago is our biggest difference,
Yeah.
but pretty similar in terms of differences. I don't know.
So what do you want to do? Do you want to do a high A
But then that kind of sounds insane for Robots of Death.
or a even lower S?
I think I would put Robots of Death below Deadly Assassin personally. But I understand. But then we got well. Let's just make the board and then see how we goes.
Okay. Yeah,
So next one is the Ark in Space,
I think that is
in between Deadly Assassin and Genesis of the Daleks at the moment.
yeah. It's very very good, especially for a second story.
Tom is killing it. That Tom and Liz together are killing it in that scene where he has to like he kind of bullies her into basically doing what she needs to do,
Yeah.
and it's just a great scene. One of the standout Tom and Liz moments in the show. And the Warren is such a great. It's a great. It maybe not the greatest execution, but it's just a great idea for a villain.
Yeah. Very good.
And Doctor Who doing a generational ship is pretty cool. Well, no, it's not a generation ship. It's a cryo. It's like a cryo. What's the name of the ship in Knock in Space, Ben?
An arc?
Well, like yeah, it's but like there's a name for it. It's not a generational. It's not a generational ship because that's when like you go out and then they have to you basically procreate while on the journey. So they're just like you're going out there knowing that you're gonna die, but you're gonna have children that are gonna live on the journey, and then they're gonna have children, and that's how we travel in space. Is that they just keep on having sex until like we make it there. We keep on procreating until it's done. We made it to our new planet. But anyways, not this is not a generation ship episode. This is an episode about Doctor Who.
I don't know if there's a specific term for it other than just, they're in stasis until they're to be awoken. But yeah, it's a cool the sense of scale that they're able to do
Yeah,
with the sets, it feels like a full spaceship. Those hallways where you can look out into space. It looks great.
right, Ben. Talons of Wang Chang. Where does that go? You place it, and I'll tell you. I rated a 9, and you both rated you rated a 9. So both of us gave it a 9.
Uh I mean, I would put it like up there.
I can live with that. I probably would put Deadly Assassin above it, but I can live with that.
Yeah. I'll throw Seeds of Doom up here too. Which I would put like here.
See, again, that's one that I personally like Ark and Space more than the Seeds of Doom, but it's also one that I'm not gonna fight you on because they're both great stories.
Yeah.
Like in reference, I gave Seeds of Doom a 9.2 and I gave Ark and Space a 9.3. So it's a 0.1% difference between how I like those stories. So it's not like they're completely different worlds we're talking about.
Yeah, what I was gonna say, the three six-parters of this era are really, really excellent. So many Pertwee six-parters that did not need to be six-parters. All of these are such a grand scope, and really what they're able to accomplish is really great.
Oh yeah, you can tell that they use the six potters to get a bigger budget and to be able to tell a more bigger story that they can, for in particular season 13 and 14, that they can end the season on.
Yeah,
All right, but here's the big question: where's Pyramids of Mars going?
I'm guessing you want it here.
Yeah, I want it right there. But
I'm more thinking along here.
yeah,
I know you really love Pyramids of Mars.
I do. But again, it's hard to for me to fight it with you just because they're
Yeah,
both very good.
man, there's so many S tier stories. Is there any that we would bump down to an A, or are they all just that good?
That's why I was thinking Robots of Death, but also Robots of Death is very good. That like I can't not say that Robots of Death is not a S tier story because it does belong in that like caliber.
Yeah,
But again, Pairs of Mars, Ben, where are we putting it? Is it
we can do this.
okay? Because you gave me Robots of Death over Deadly Assassin over the Robots of Death, so you can put Doom over Pyramids if you wanted to.
I mean, it's not that serious, you know. It's these are both wonderful stories. I think I like the Seeds of Dune slightly more, but like they're both really great. I'm not gonna if I feel like so to be an S tier, I feel like if someone were to come up on the street and say this is my favorite Doctor Who story, you'd be like, oh yeah, I totally get it. Would you say that's the case?
Oh yeah, definitely.
And I think these are all the case for these stories. Let's run through for our Spotify listeners real quick. So in S tier, we have Genesis of the Daleks, Pyramids of Mars, The Seeds of Doom, The Ark in Space, The Talons of Wang Chiang, The Deadly Assassin, and then The Robots of Death. So a lot of S tiers here. The only A is The Brain of Morbius, which is very good but not a masterpiece. Terror of the Zygons is in B with Robot, The Hand of Fear, and The Android Invasion. C is The Face of Evil, The Sontaran Experiment, and Planet of Evil. Revenge of the Cybermen is in D with The Mask of Mandragora. That is the definitive, objective Phillip Hinchcliffe era ranking for all time in space.
But Ben, we have more. You had our rankings averaged out by numbers, along with you. We always end the show with the Doctor Who magazine poll, and you did the rankings for just the Hinchcliffe era, and now we're going to talk about how our rankings compared to the Doctor Who community's rankings.
Yeah, so as you can see, I have a spreadsheet here. Averaged our ratings together, putting Genesis at the top and Mask at the bottom, which gave us a ranking of 1 through 17. And because I thought it'd be interesting, also, I've tracked the difference? Like, what stories do we disagree on the most? So, the one that we disagree on the most is The Mask of Mandragora, because I like it almost a full point more. And we were in sync a lot, which I don't think happened for Pertwee as much. A lot of like, we're on the same page.
But just shows you how consistently good this era is
Yeah,
for the show.
not much variance between us.
Very like the Graham Williams era is where it's going to be more hot takes, where somebody's going to come in and be like, "I actually enjoyed this," and somebody else is going to be like, "I hated this. I thought this was so boring."
Yeah. Who do you think is gonna love it more, and who do you think is gonna hate it more?
It's going to depend on the episode.
I feel like I have maybe more of an open mind, but there are also times where it doesn't vibe with me.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see who likes maybe it'll be another time monster where you're gonna love Underworld, Ben. You're gonna be like, I don't see the problem with this story. This actually was really fun.
We will see. So I took the rank from the 2023 Doctor Who magazine polls, got a new rank relative to each other since, it's mixed in with every Fourth Doctor serial. And so the ones that we disliked way more than the polls. The most is Terror of the Zygons, which we have ranked 5 places below what Doctor Who Magazine did. So it's 11 out of 17 versus their 6 out of 17. Does this surprise you?
No, because I kind of already knew when we did it that we were insane. Most people would rate it higher. That we went as high as Terror for the Terror of the Zygons.
And Robots, we also didn't. Robots is like it's like top 5 for stories, period. On ours, even just for Hinchcliffe, is only 6. So there's some disconnect there as well. Mask is, as we go down and we get closer to things, like we both completely agree Genesis is the best story, period. And Pyramids is number 2, and Hand and Fear is top 10 of Hinchcliffe anyway. Story that we uh loved way more than Dark Who magazine poll submitters is the Android Invasion. We liked that way more.
Yeah, we did. You just hated on it. What's gonna happen? The Blu-ray release is gonna come out, and people are gonna be like, "Oh, this story slaps. This isn't as bad as people thought it was."
And Robot is also a little bit higher, and the Ark in Space is a little bit higher.
So Ben, we had 3 companions throughout the Hinchcliffe era. We had Sarah Jane, we had Harry Sullivan, and we had Leela, whatever the fuck her last name is. Do you remember her last name without looking it up?
I don't know if she has a last
That's a
name.
great question.
She's just Leela of the 17.
Even her Wikipedia page is just Leela. She might just have only the first name, which is kind of sad.
It's not the only one.
But like by this point, Ben, like the main female character should have a last name. I don't know.
It is what it is.
Because like what? Dodo is the other one. And who's another
No,
one that?
Dodo has a last name. Dodo Chaplet.
So who does have not have a last name?
Vicky?
Vicky does not have a last name. Interesting. Anyone else?
I think that's it. Because she only ever says, I'm Vicky. And if you go to the TARDIS wiki, there is a last name, but that was established later on in like other sources.
But Ben, we had those 3 companions. Let's start off with because see the Sarah's the big one, but let's save Sarah for last. Let's start off with the companion that we only just got 3 episodes of, Leela.
Mhm.
What is so far your impressions of Leela? Actually, no, that doesn't work because we have to do an order. So Ben, what did you think of Sarah Jane? And of course, we started Sarah Jane off in the Barry Letts era.
Yes.
We got introduced to her in season 11.
Hmm.
And then season 12 was her first season with Tom, and then we got another season with Tom, and she left halfway through season 14. Even not even halfway. It was like very early on
Yes.
in season 14, 2 serials in. So Ben, what did you think of the GOAT, Sarah Jane Smith, in the Hinchcliffe era?
She is great. I think we've talked about her strengths ad nauseum. She is truly a partner to the Doctor. She can hold her own. Anything she does is just as interesting as the Doctor. We can have a real good A and B plot. She is a strong character. It's interesting how I feel like she kind of a lot of her initial characteristics end up degrading over time. Like there's the reporter aspect to her, there's like the feminist aspect to her. That kind of goes away.
Oh yeah, Robert Holmes does not care that Sarah Jane Smith is a journalist. And like we have in the first episode of Robot, because it's still Terrence Dicks and Barry Letts, that she still is like, I'm a reporter, I'm gonna do reporter things. And then just right when they take over, she like doesn't bring it up ever again. It's ever like, oh, I have to do this for the news story. Or it's like even like Terror of the Zygons, when they go back in current day, you would think she would be like, "Oh, I need to write about this for the journal. Or I have to call up my lead editor, my head editor, or some shit like that."
Yeah.
Nothing. At least from what I can remember, there's nothing in Zygons.
Yeah,
They bring it up in Android Invasion.
because it's a town that she visited, in her previous reporting
Yeah.
days. But other than literally that, I think it never comes into play.
She never has a thirst for the story.
Yes, she doesn't use her investigative skills.
She's like, "Wow, I got to write about this." There's nothing, none of that.
And feminism too, that's kinda gone.
No, she's just kind of just she's just the Doctor's best friend, man.
Yeah.
And of course, that is just to give my two thoughts. Is like, no, like Sarah Jane. There's a reason why she's the goat of classic Doctor Who companions. There's a reason why, out of all the companions they brought back first, and really, like, yes, they had brought back other companions, but like, she's the only one that they brought back like with a big push. No other classic Doctor Who companion has their own show.
Exactly, and I totally see why.
And at the same time, it's like, I don't know how much you've experienced this, but every single time that like I run into somebody that's older that like sees me in a Doctor Who shirt, they make comment on like, "Oh yeah, I watched that show as a kid with the Doctor and Sarah Jane." That's a core memory for at least American viewers, was the Doctor and Sarah Jane. I don't know if that maybe is just a PBS thing, that PBS just showed the Hinchcliffe era a lot, and that was what was repeated, or if that was maybe around the same time where the PBS, because PBS did show the classic show in its entirety, I believe. But like, I also know if maybe that's where it kind of started off of the Hinchcliffe era, is where the it became more popular in the states.
I'm looking it up now. They did do some Pertwee, but it really they started in full force with season 12.
Which again kind of makes sense, that because like a lot of people of that age group of late 40s, 50s, maybe even early 60s, they had that core memory of being a child watching Tom Baker and Sarah Jane. And there's a good reason for that. She works with Pertwee, but it's one of those cases where she's Tom's companion.
Oh, yeah, it's crazy they weren't cast together. It just kinda worked out that way.
They have just probably the greatest chemistry the show has ever had. Only rivaled by, I would say, uh, David Tennant and Catherine Tate, and then as well as Matt Smith and Karen Gillan, along with, I would say, Patrick Troughton and Fraser Hines. And then I would say also, just throwing another one out there, I would say the Sophie Aldred and Sylvester McCoy has that chemistry as well. But there's something in particular special about Elizabeth Sladen and Tom Baker's chemistry together. They have that thing of just, I don't even know if, like, you would know better than me. Like the Doctor, well, like, yeah, the Doctor never has called a companion a best friend before Sarah Jane, right?
I don't think so. I can imagine, Troughton and Jamie, but I can't think of a specific memory.
Yeah. But also that's a weird one because they had another person there as well. So you could imagine you'd be like, "Oh, those are my friends." I don't know if you would
Yeah.
just single out Jamie as, "This is my best friend." But like Vorney said that, and I know in particular it's Season Doom, but I think he does say it somewhere else. That's like, that's a cool moment for me of like, oh no, that it just fits. That relation, it summarizes their relationship so well, of just like they are just best friends in the TARDIS, traveling the galaxy with these adventures, and it's just incredible.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, like some of the stuff that Barry Letts came in with disappeared in the Hinchcliffe era, but it still works. It works even better, like we said, just because of their chemistry together is just off the charts. I don't know how much I talked about this, but in the Hand of Fair episode, because I already forget. But you edited that episode, so you would know more. Did I ever talk about the why she left the show?
No, I don't think so.
So she left the show because just her contract was running out. It was only for 3.5 seasons. Just like, oh, maybe it was just 3 seasons, and then she stayed on for the next 2 episodes, something like that. That her basically her contract was running out. And she just thought that She didn't ask for to renew their contract at all. She's just like, "All right, I'll leave when my contract's over." And it's just that Tom said this to Hinchcliffe, and Hinchcliffe was like, "Oh no, I would have like if I knew that she wanted to stay on in the show, I would have kept on going for it." Because the reason why Elizabeth Sladen, I should have said this. I'm a terrible storyteller right now, but the reason why she was just gonna leave with the contract was over because she just thought, "Oh no, this producer didn't even cast me. He's probably gonna want somebody he knew that he would have more control over." But Hinchcliffe later on, when he was talking to Tom, was like, "Nah, I would have kept it because like their dynamic was just so good together. Like it would have been nice just to have like a full season 14 with Sarah. I would say it kind of sucks that we just have like this like half season with well not even like I said not even half. It's only those 2 episodes. It would have been good if we had that full season with more with Elizabeth Sladen and Tom Baker, especially since as we move on to the next companion, Harry kind of Harry being there for season 12 kind of makes it so that we got less moments between just Elizabeth Sladen and Tom Baker.
So Harry Sullivan, what a guy.
Yes. I remember I thought it was funny at first where you were pretty much like saying, "Well, who the fuck is this guy?" I think you probably said that those exact words. You're like, "Who is this?" And I
Yeah.
was just like, "No, it's Harry, dude. Just roll with it." And you were just like, "I don't know about this." It took you like all the way to, I think it was either Robots of Death or Zygons. Like towards basically he was gone. You were like, "Okay, I understand it. He is just a guy and just a bloke."
Yeah. I liked him, I think starting with like Genesis.
Yeah,
I really love that scene where he's helping the doctor with the mine.
yeah. But like he's just kind of there. He doesn't really have that many character traits except for like he's a little bit old school.
Yeah.
And he's a little bit there for like, of course, he was supposed to be there because the fourth Doctor role was supposed to be well, not supposed to be, but they were thinking about casting a more elderly actor for the role. So they would need an Ian surrogate basically to do a lot of the action antics. But of course, that's not needed when you have Tom Baker there that can be the leading man to do all the stunts.
Yeah. So Harry just ends up kind of being a third wheel where he doesn't really need to be there.
But also, it kind of works for stories like Ark in Space and Genesis the Daleks because Sarah is just doing her own story, and then we have Harry and the Doctor on their story. So the Doctor still has a companion that he can talk to and do exposition to, while Sarah is able to do her own storyline.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I like him. He's a stand-up guy, but I think he's pretty uninteresting.
Yeah, not the greatest companion, but also not the worst companion. You don't go, oh, like, oh shit, Harry's in this episode. That sucks. It's just like, okay.
Not many tears were shed when he left after Terror.
Yeah, but also like here's a parents reappearance and fucking Android Invasion isn't like a oh fuck yeah Harry Sullivan's back. You're just kind of going oh Harry's back, and the show doesn't even fucking care that Harry's back in a way.
I mean, it's mostly Android. I think
Yeah,
there's only a tiny, like literally like 2 minutes of real
yeah,
Harry.
but it's kind of in that similar space of Liz in for Poetry of just like a companion that is there for the first season but doesn't really fully work, so they have to remove them. So we move on to
Yeah,
another companion that works better, which of course, like we said, it works better just to have Liz with the fourth Doctor. But then, of course, Elizabeth Sladen leaves, and then we get Leela. The reason why I was like, oh, let's start with Leela. It's like, no, because it adds more to the discussion to say how is she different from Elizabeth Sladen, and not just okay. This is what we think of Leela for 3 episodes. So Ben, what like so far? What is your impressions of Leela, and like, do you think this was the right change to do after Elizabeth Sladen's?
it's hard to say. The dynamic is definitely the biggest difference.
Yeah,
They don't get the sense that they're best friends. It's very much just like, yeah, they're tagging along. They like each other, but it doesn't really go much deeper than that. Leela kind of looks to the doctor as a figure of authority,
and knowledge.
a mentor rather than a buddy. But she is good. I do like her. She's kind of more leaning into the role of being explained to a little bit more than I
Yeah.
think Sarah did.
Just because of like having that like that fish out of water person of just being like she doesn't know even our world, so the doctor has to explain to her more questions than he would have to do for someone like Sarah Jane.
Yeah, but she's very bright. She's intelligent. She's strong and fierce. She has quite more like hand to hand action scenes than Sarah.
Yeah, she kills people.
Oh yeah, she has a kill count for sure. She's killed, I mean, at least one person. Did she kill anyone in Robots of
I don't
Death?
think so because it's like, yeah.
Oh no, I think she killed someone in Talons of Wang
Oh no, she
Chiang.
definitely kills somebody in Talons of Wing.
She had like one of those plants from Face of Evil that she killed like a Chinese man with.
Yeah. But yeah, I think we compared her to Jamie in some ways of like she kind of has that Jamie role of just asking questions because she is a little bit more of a fish out of water, but also being much more of the muscle in some ways.
Yeah.
And of course, there's a little bit more of a sex appeal to Leela than there is with Sarah Jane. Sarah Jane very much not there for the dads to gawk at, but there is an element of there to Leela.
Yeah. Sarah had a lot of like trendy
Yeah,
outfits. Nothing
yeah.
skimpy.
Leela shows off those legs.
Ooh, yeah.
And Louise Jameson does a good job in the role. I have no complaints with her performance.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing more.
It's just that thing of just it's not Sarah Jane, and of course it can't be because you can't replicate that. But and it just coming right off from it, you kind of are going. There's something here that just isn't that level. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right, Ben. So moving on to the companions overall as a whole, the Hinchcliffe era, like I said at the beginning of this episode, very much beloved, very much considered the golden age of classic Doctor Who. Do you get why people consider this age a golden age of the show?
I think so. You know, like we were talking about earlier with our ranking. If you look, it's mostly S tier or like not the majority, but there's a lot of really great stories. There's not many
Yeah,
duds. There's like four or five ones that are okay to good. Like even like Mask and Revenge of the Cybermen, they're not god awful.
unwatchable.
Yeah. So it's very consistent. A lot of very iconic classic episodes. I can see why this would be considered like a golden era. We have to see if no, John Nathan Turner is the next one, right?
Yeah, he's in the last one.
What's the next one?
Graham Williams.
Graham Williams. We'll have to see if Graham Williams. I'm assuming he's not going to top Philip
No. And then like John Nathan Turner is interesting just because he goes on for so long, having that like
Yeah, four doctors.
9-year run. In retrospect, he was like, I should have left at like the Five Doctors, which is so early on in his career. That's 3 years into his career of Doctor Who. He's like, I should have left then, but stays on for another 6 years and casts two more doctors. So it's gonna that's gonna be an interesting one when we do the rankings of John Nathan Turner's era. My God, that's gonna be a long list, Ben. That, but like basically, I guess it's not even that. It's just gonna be like, are we gonna name that episode the John Nathan Turner era retrospective, or are we just gonna do the '80s retrospective era?
I mean, it's the same
Yeah,
thing.
that's the way. But what do you call it? I'm gonna have to think about that when we get there.
I mean, probably 80s.
Yeah,
That would be the most clickable.
which would means we're at the end of Graham Williams, we're probably gonna have to do a '70s retrospective as well. So we have to do a Graham Williams retrospective and a '70s retrospective.
And a fourth Doctor retrospective.
Yeah, but that's the next season.
No,
Oh no, we have because I don't know, but I want to do the full rankings of all the Fourth Doctor
I know. I mean, I'm fine if we don't do a Graham Williams and if we just do
'70s,
a fourth Doctor retro at the end of
but a
18.
consistency,
It is what it is, man. You
Ben.
know, we're not, we're only human.
But yeah, like I to get this back on to my question to myself of just is this a golden night of the show? Of course it is. It is
Yeah.
one of those ones where some things are just known for being good, and there's a reason for it being known as good. A lot of times with movies, it's like The Godfather, for instance. It's like, yeah, it's regarded as being a masterpiece because guess what? It is. And like, not saying that the Hinchcliffe era is The Godfather, but it's definitely has that in terms of the like, if we comparing the two and like being fair for what they both are, there is a certain quality level that can kind of matches it of just like now this kind of is for what it's doing and what it wants to be at this era. In like if you have the glasses of this time, you really can't do better than this for what it's doing. A lot of the times in classic Doctor Who, they have no fucking money at all. I feel like one of the best things about the Hinchcliffe era is that there's not a lot of times in this era where we have went, God, the production design or like you really can tell they ran out of money. The only time I can think about that in particular is we were pretty hot on Planet of Evil because like the second half of it, you can kind of tell they spent all their budget on the first half. But except for that, and of course you have the green bubble wrap, but you can kind of give that excuse just because that's their first episode.
And they reused a lot of those sets for
Yeah, but
Revenge
you can that makes
and
sense in some ways. They did fit it in the story. It's not like, oh, oh, it's we're now on this space station and it's just the same exact thing.
True, true.
But yeah, and also I don't know if that was a Hinchcliffe decision, if that was a Barry Letts decision. It's just it's consistently just up there, and like I don't how many in that rankings been. I don't know if you can pull it up easily. How many episodes were in the S pair?
7?
7 episodes out of like how many were there in overall?
17.
So like, damn. That just shows you it's just like almost half of the stories are like pretty much you going, no, that was great.
And only 5 of them are C or lower.
Yeah. It's like any of these episodes, I could imagine myself being like, okay, I'll rewatch that. Even Mastermind Drago, it's like I'll rewatch that one day.
Yeah. When we were talking about we did our 3rd Doctor retrospective, I kind of fought you like, "Oh, there's no F tiers here." But I think we conceded that there are, I think, 2 or 3. But this is one that there are definitely no F tiers here.
Yeah, but also it's kind of unfair because that was 5 years and this was only 3 years. But my God, what quality they had for those 3 years! And like just to go on to like the era overall, it's just you can kind of tell that Robert Holmes was a little bit just going for more darker tone than Barry Letts and Terrence Dicks. Barry Letts and Terrence Dicks had kids. I don't think Robert Holmes had children at that point. And of course, Philip Hinchcliffe was like 29 at this point, so I don't even think he had kids yet. So they're not coming at it from that same perspective of Barry Letts and Terrence Dicks going like, "Oh, I'm making this show and this is my job and I need to make it for my children." Instead, they're kind of more making it towards a general audience of teenagers and also in some ways they're making it for themselves, I would imagine. Just what they would want to see instead of just being like, I want to make a story that I think children would like to see. I think that's a big thing that's different from the Third Doctor era and the Hinchcliffe era. Do you see that?
Yeah, yeah. Definitely. Even all of them are much more mature, darker toned, darker themes.
And always pushing that barrier of what is acceptable for the show at that time slot.
Oh, yeah. Some brutal stuff like the Seeds of Doom, death of the villain.
Yeah. Which again, like that's so dark. They did that on the Blu-ray. There's a great interview with Hinchcliffe. That's like it's like 90 minutes. They do had a great conversation. I forget the guy who does the interviews, but he's great at doing those interviews. But he did an interview with them because Hinchcliffe is still alive. He's the oldest producer of Doctor Who. Oh, actually, no, I shouldn't even say that. He's the only living producer of classic Doctor Who's still alive. But like they did a great interview, and in that interview, he brings up the interviewer the moment in the Seeds of Doom, which we didn't really talk about, I think, that much. But it was the like the character getting fed raw meat that really stood out to him as being really dark for that time slot of just like this man who's like shape shifting and not becoming human being fed raw meat by the butler
Uh,
was like that he just thought that was such a dark moment for this kid's show because there's something really fucked up about that. But I would still say that there's something even more fucked up about the like you said the trash the compactor's death because that's a real death. That's not a science fiction death.
no, that's not a laser gun shooting you and you just poof, you're gone.
Yeah. And then like there's other things in the Hitchcock era of like a lot of the things that I mentioned were like the in particular Mary Whitehouse yelled about like this is all those stuff. The cliffhangers in Deadly Assassin, not the cliffhangers, but the cliffhanger in Deadly Assassin where Tom is getting drowned. It's like Jesus Christ. You would never do that today of just like ending an episode with the doctor getting drowned. Because there's just something really too real about that. And it's also it's not even like it's not a fantasy drowning, if that can be a thing. It's not like a monster is holding him down or something. It's like just a regular man is just literally with his bare hands drowning the doctor. But yeah, then any other moments that stood out to you of just like Jesus?
A lot of guns.
Yeah.
I mean, not a lot, but like Doctor makes the cardinal sin of holding and shooting a gun multiple times.
Yes, he does. I would say like Genesis as a whole is something that's a lot darker than anything in the Barry Letts era of the show.
Oh yeah, a lot of like war.
Like and like it really goes into the Nazi stuff and doesn't shy away from it, and it's just goes full on in it. Whoever wrote that, which is either Robert Holmes or Terry Nation, whoever you think wrote it, really went for it for that episode.
Um, Android invasion. Sarah's face falling off.
Yeah, but that's not really that's fantasy. That's not like a real like dark thing going on.
Yeah, it's shocking.
Like there's something a little bit fucked up about some of the stuff in Brain of Morbius.
Oh yeah, there's some ritual sacrifice.
But like also just like having that one character's arm getting like amputated off of him.
Dismemberment, yeah.
And then like of course there's that one scene where he gets shot and there's like a skib that's like a blood flying.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, and then like of course, like we talked about it, I've been using the word Hinchcliffe a lot, but Hinchcliffe was just the producer. The story editor was Robert Holmes. Of course, he stays on for a little bit longer, halfway through season 15. But Robert Holmes, of course, is very much all over this. Writes a majority of this era of the show. Terrence Dicks said that he rewrote episodes, but like it seems like Holmes had much more of a rewriting of the episodes that he himself didn't write. In particular, like there's a couple examples like Pyramids of Mars and Brain of Morbius, where like to the point of a pseudonym had to be made because he rewrote it so much. I find that to be fascinating that he was that committed to getting these scripts to be at that good state. And of course, you can kind of tell quality wise that there is somebody there that is really committed to having these scripts be the best they can be. And like I said earlier, like you can tell that Robert Holmes has a little bit more of a darker voice to him than previous eras of the show. You can kind of see that in something like the Autons and like Terror of the Autons of like some of those moments. But like you can really see it when he fully took over the show that he had fun scaring the shit out of children. Also, I think at this era of the show, you can see that like if it's written by Robert Holmes, or like you can see if you look online and see that it's a pseudonym and Robert Holmes actually wrote it, that's kind of a seal of quality. That it's like, oh no, this is gonna be a really good one.
Yeah, yeah.
And of course, like also talking about just mentioning it real quick, the directors of this era, it's like having Douglas Camfield and David Maloney, like I would say the two main ones that I think about for this era of just really are great directors, know how to use the budgets really well. And like we talked a lot about David Maloney's use of atmosphere for this era is incredible, and his scale of the cheap sets don't make them look cheap. His directing work in Justice of the Daleks and the talents of Wang Chiang is just really incredible stuff for the limitations that he has as a director.
Absolutely.
And it's a shame that the show didn't use either of them after this because they really were such talented directors. But yeah, like anything else to say about the Hinchcliffe era, Ben, as a whole? I guess if you want to move on, we can talk about just Tom in general. What did you think of Tom for his first few seasons, his first 3 seasons? Tom as a doctor, how you feeling?
I really like him. Such a fun doctor. I can tell in almost every episode when he's having fun and when he's not having fun. Because there are definitely times when he's not, aka such as Pyramids of Mars. But he's funny, he's witty, but also can really like dramatically perform as needed. He's definitely, I could see him being one of my favorite doctors, which, surprise, surprise, Tom Baker is good.
Again, one of those things of like people say, "Oh no, this is one of the best ones," and it's just like you come to watch and you be like, "Oh, there's a reason why."
Yes, I can definitely see why. Is he gonna dethrone Troutman? Maybe. We'll see. I mean, we've not even halfway through.
And he stayed on so long.
Long, long time.
No, but like just to say my thoughts, like but what I just want to point out, you mentioned his Paramount Maz performance, but even though he you can tell he doesn't want to be there, he gives such an incredible performance that
Oh,
episode
absolutely.
that like even a pissed off Tom Baker, it works for that story because he feels like there is like a that that pissiness, that attitude really brings out in the story the sense of danger
Yeah.
that like you can really tell the doctor thinks that like he's really serious that episode, and you kind of going, oh shit, there really is this really is going to be the end of the world.
Yeah, there's definitely the strong sense that the Fourth Doctor is just Tom Baker, unfiltered, while maybe like John Pertwee was a little bit more acting.
There's also moments where John was just being John Pertwee.
True.
I don't think all the doctors bring they put themselves into the role in some ways,
Well, yeah, of
which is
course.
what's so great about the character, that the character can change so drastically. And like Tom just in particular really just inhabits the role and makes it his own, just because like you said, you can just kind of tell it's just behind that mask, it is just Tom Baker. Is, or at least the Tom Baker that Tom Baker wants to be.
True. Think he wanted to be a comedian?
Probably. You can kind of tell in some ways that he just wants to just be up there and tell jokes. And not even jokes that like he doesn't even want to hear the audience laugh. He just wants to make himself laugh in the
Oh, yeah.
inside.
He's definitely carries on the torch of loving the sound of his own voice.
But there's also that thing about Tom that's so great is that you can just tell he's in love that he's playing this character that's the smartest man in the room. That like he gets off on it, and that's great. I love that aspect about the Doctor, but also like what you mentioned, the Tom, at least the Hinchcliffe era Tom Baker has that great mix between the comedian side and the real dramatic side.
Yeah,
That the Fourth Doctor can really much be like have those moments like a Genesis of the Daleks of do I have the right, and he can have that moments like in Pyramids of Mars where he's really going, no, this is the end of the universe we're talking about here. But then also has moments of just pure, he is just a clown basically. It is just there just to tell jokes. And it is just there to have a big smile on his face. Like there's something so particular about that characterization of the Doctor that I just love so much.
he's great.
And we'll see how he goes in the in the Graham Williams era, and then of course at the end of the John Nathan Turner era, where of course he very much changes, as you would imagine, just having the role for that long of a
Hmm.
time. You as yourself are going to change, so of course you're going to play this character drastically differently.
My loose understanding is Graham Williams is a little bit more lighthearted, a
Yeah,
little bit more family friendly.
yeah, but also just Tom is sillier, I would say. But like John Nathan Turner, he's much more like he's kind of grumpy. He's like a grumpy old man that just does not want to be there and is just done with the role. So like, you have that to look forward to, Ben.
I will.
But yeah, we could be here for a long time talking about Tom Baker in the Hinchcliffe era. But is there any final thoughts you want to say about the Hinchcliffe era?
I have one question I could
Yeah,
posit to you. What do you think is the best monster of this era?
great question. The Zygons are probably the best looking monsters in this era.
Really?
It probably is just the Zygons, just because like they are the most iconic, like you said, monsters, right? Or did you say villain?
I said monster. It doesn't have to like literally be like a monster, but not just like, oh yeah, that guy. Not a guy, but a monster.
Yeah, because like Morbius is great. I love that design of Morbius and the idea of Morbius, and like having this Frankenstein Time Lord and like that design of like this cobbled together of different alien races
Hmm.
beast is in the fishbowl. Like it's just one of those designs that just it shouldn't really work, but it really does work.
Oh yeah.
Of the big gigantic claw and like the human arm and like those antennas coming out of the fishbowl.
Hmm.
It's great. I love the Morbius design and the idea of Morbius, but I would have to say this just talking monsters, it's the Zygons, just because even though I didn't love that story, the Zygons themselves, it's such a great design. There's a reason why that design has held up throughout the years. And the shapeshifters are it's always fun to have a science fiction stories with shapeshifters, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
But what's your answer, Ben? Because you're shocked that I said Zygon, so I'm curious what you're thinking.
I don't know. It's a tough one. Maybe the. Do you know the Ark in Space?
The Warren.
The yeah, those are cool.
No, the Warren. I think the wearing it is they're great.
Not as iconic,
Yeah,
but definitely very good.
the idea is very great for the wearing. I love the idea for the wearing. It's just like the thing that really breaks it down is for me is just like that you can kind of tell that's their first episode,
Yeah.
even though it's such a great episode. But, like, you can kinda tell just from a reduction standpoint, the the Warren when they're, like, shape-shifting and then when they become the full Warren, it's just a little bit too much for this budget to having be these gigantic insects. There's just not enough mobility there. There's not enough, yeah, animation in a way. But, like, again, the idea for the Warren is so strong, and Stephen Moffat has brought up multiple times of, like, they should bring back the Warren and do the Warren today. I think it would
Oh,
be really
yeah.
cool if they brought back the Warren with today's special
You
effects.
could do some cool stuff.
Yeah.
Or the robots. Not exactly a monster, but a evil group of non-humans.
Yeah, it'd been like that it's just like we talked about in that episode, like, it's a great design.
Oh,
Like I
yes.
said, I want that, like, as a statue or action figure because like, that is the I love that design so much. Alright, Ben, I think that's gonna be all for the Hinchcliffe era retrospective. We probably could go on for longer, but that's all I have for it at the moment. It's very good, ladies and gentlemen. Sometimes, like we talked about in the past of just, like it's sometimes hard when something is just really good because it's not like there's a lot of conversations to be had except for, "Wow, blank is very good," and the other person goes, "Yeah, that is very good."
Yeah. I don't think there's much constructive criticism we could throw their way.
No, it's just one of those areas where it's like, I'm sure we're gone a long way not even saying the gothic horror mix with Doctor Who, it just fits so well, and there's a reason why, like, episodes today that harken back to this gothic horror elements really are the ones that the fandom loves the most. And also, like, I just want to mention real quick. There's also like I mentioned on Ark in Space as well as Season Doom that like the three modern Doctor Who showrunners all said that their favorite classic Doctor Who story came from this era in particular, which is pretty common of people saying that their favorite stories came from this era. So yeah, it's very good. Good job, Philip Hinchcliffe, if you're watching. You did good.
You did it.
So, ladies and gentlemen, please like and subscribe if you're on YouTube. Follow us if you're listening to us on a podcast. Remember, we have shorts out. Watch the shorts. Remember, we post every Saturday at noon Eastern Standard Time. If you're British, I'm sorry. I don't know what that is. I think it's 6 hour difference. So it could be 6 p.m.
It's 5 hours. So it'll be 5 p.m., which is a good time.
Yeah. Goodbye, ladies and gentlemen.
Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Peace out, everyone.